Welcome, everyone, to the Lights on Leader interview. My name is Jane Buckenevich, and I'm the faculty director of the Lloyd D. Levinson Institute of Gaming, Hospitality, and Tourism. I'm joined today by Elizabeth Terenik, who's the president of the Chelsea Economic Development Corporation, and she's also a member of our Light Advisory Board. So thank you, Elizabeth, for joining us today.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be with you.
So my first question is very broad, and I'll let you answer it any way you'd like. Who is Elizabeth Terenik?
That's a good question and so hard to answer. I'd say I'm a multifaceted person. Most importantly, and of course, what I'm most dedicated to and proud of is my four children. I have Alex, Peter, Dimitri, and Sophia. Otherwise, my career is in public service. I'm extremely passionate about public service. And I feel that I've been very fortunate to have a lot of opportunity in that area. I'm also a land use planner, so I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey, which allows me to testify at public hearings on development applications. And I'm also a business owner. I really enjoy wellness, and I started Seaside Wellness AC about a year ago to connect the community with the wellness services that are available in this area. And that's been a whole lot of fun. And it's been great to be a business owner and understand the challenges that business owners have. So, uh,
Wow, what a background. Awesome. So, kind of overlapping in this question, what were the highlights of your career which led you to your current role as president of the Chelsea Economic Development Corporation and also as a business owner?
mhm. Well, I've had really great opportunity in public service agencies. For example, my first job after I completed my master's in public administration was at the Atlantic County Utilities Authority. And under the leadership of Rick Dovey, just learned a lot about government agencies and how they function in a very responsible way to like serve the public. And then I worked, when my children were younger, I worked in code enforcement and zoning officer, which has given me incredible knowledge and background for a lot of the work that I do now with Chelsea EDC. Then I moved on to being planning director in Ocean City and in Atlantic City. And in all of these positions, I've had the opportunity to effectuate change, and that has been extremely rewarding. But the most opportunity has been in Atlantic City, and I felt the most supported here to make those kinds of changes. And it's just been extremely rewarding, challenging, of course, but very rewarding here in Atlantic City.
Well, I've only known you for a fairly short time and I've seen all that you've accomplished. So you certainly have made an impact on the community from my perspective, for sure. What would you consider your greatest challenge or your greatest success currently?
I would say the greatest challenge is getting things done in public service, and the greatest success for me has been getting things done in public service. It's so hard because there are processes in place, right? Whether government or even a nonprofit, Chelsea EDC and AC DevCo uses government funding. So, of course, we're extremely conscientious with how we spend that money. And that's all good and should be that way. But it can make things extremely, complicated to get things done. And I think that actually is an area that I'm good at, to get things done in government, but it is such a challenge. And it's always it's trying to figure out the path. What is the path that's going to get us the end goal of getting things done? And I think for any of us that are working to make Atlantic City better, that showing results and getting things done is extremely important. People have planning fatigue. There are studies upon studies in the city on how to make it better. And so there's a lot of good suggestions in all those plans. We just now have to do it, right? And
Yeah.
that's been the fun of Chelsea EDC, is that we've been able to activate projects and do things on the ground, which has been really fun. But it is challenging. It is really challenging. And it's like, what are the things that we can do that will really make people's lives better? And anyone working for change in Atlantic City knows that there's a lot to be done. In fact, we decided to do a pilot project on a 4 block area. We've been at it for almost 3 months now in this small area of the Chelsea neighborhood. And there's a lot to be done. So, what is it, what do we prioritize that's really going to make the biggest impact and make people's lives better? And that's just a challenge, but
Wow.
it's been a good challenge. And I think we're making some good progress.
Absolutely, and for sure. So looking at a bigger focus of Atlantic City in general, outside even of the Chelsea neighborhood, what is
Mhm.
your vision for the future of Atlantic City, and what will be some key issues or trends over the next few years?
So I feel that I'm blessed because I feel like I can see Atlantic City's best version of itself. Um, and I work every day for us to get there. And it's just about livability. I mean, I think the most important issue for Atlantic City is making it the livability factor. And we have so many assets here. I mean, there is more than enough uh, to to make us happy, to live here. And I do live in the city, but we really have to work on the livability factors that most cities face, which include things like public safety or, just vibrancy, increasing the vibrancy. And we do that through things like public art, which has been incredible, beautiful. 100th mural was just done, sponsored by the Atlantic City Arts Foundation. Things like the infrastructure, um, making sure things like traffic lights are working well, or crosswalks, streets paved, parking isn't too hard. Like, those are the things that make people want to live here. And on a state and national level, we have the issue of housing, right? So I'm on the State Planning Commission. One of the biggest challenges is, how do we create the housing that's in demand and make it priced so that people can buy homes? And we have that opportunity in cities. We already have the infrastructure. We already have the transit systems. I mean, Atlantic City has incredible, bus, jitney, train. So we have the infrastructure in cities to make it work, but we need to take the vacant lots, for example, and get them into housing. And we also have to make the city more livable. So I think that's our biggest issue. And it's called clean and safe. We call it clean and safe a lot. And that ties to the vacant buildings and lots and all that. So we just really need to create that hierarchy. I call it like a hierarchy of a strong community. And the foundation is clean and safe. And then, it moves up from there and goes up to well-paying jobs, right? But no economic development can happen if we don't have a foundation of livability and clean and safe.
Mm.
So,
What role do you see Chelsea EDC playing in the future of Atlantic City?
well, it's been extremely rewarding to be in just one neighborhood rather than entire city, or people that are working on the state level, looking at the whole state. To be on that more granular level, it's given us the opportunity to understand more clearly what the problems are. And so Chelsea is serving as a direct connection between the residents that are here and their struggles, and those that are trying to make things better. So whether that's the Economic Development Authority that has grants available for small businesses, and then we connect the businesses with the EDA, help them do the paperwork and get those grants, or if it's other opportunities that are out there for the community. There are so many resources. Over the past 3 months, we've been setting up on a street corner. We call it a pop-up office. And we just talk to people going by, and people need resources, and they don't realize that there are a lot of resources out there for them, not just what we offer, but also other programs that are available to make their lives better and to offer them new opportunities to grow their wealth or their income. So we're just trying to get the information and the resources are there to the people that live in the community. So I think that's one of our biggest roles. We also hold people accountable, for their responsibility. So for example, we go out and we count lights, street lights that are out, and we report that. We report code violations. We reach out to the utility companies to make sure that their wires are not that are kept up. So we do a lot of work that involves getting people to do their jobs. And sometimes in Atlantic City, where it looks like no one's really paying attention, the different agencies may take advantage of that and not spend as much time. So we have a lot of role there. And then we also are advocating for public policy, whether it's for the at-risk individuals to help them to get to a better place, or for infrastructure projects or whatever it is. We have a big advocacy role as well in the city. So, but the numbers really speak for themselves. So we've reported, say, over 600 code violations just in this small pilot area, over 1,000 that we've done overall. We've installed Ring doorbell cameras for residents, about 150 of those. We've installed surveillance cameras. We've given about 20 storefront grants. We're starting to do residential improvement grants. We've given out grants for home buyers, 19 home buyers. And these are renters from the neighborhood that now own their own home. So we're really excited about that. That's been about $300,000. So projects like that, there's no end to what we can do. And we've been very proud of the results and the numbers that we've generated.
Well, with Stockton being located in the Chelsea neighborhood, we are thrilled with all of the work that you have done, and you've really have made the neighborhood so much better. So thank you for that. Also, as I mentioned in the beginning, you are a member of the Light Advisory Board. So what role do you see Light or Stockton playing in the future of Atlantic City?
Light has been such a great partner for all of us that are working to make Atlantic City better. And you share the same goals that we do, which is to improve economic opportunity in the city and in the region. I think the work that you've been doing on research that advance, our goals, such as the Restaurant Week survey, I thought that was great. And things like the perception study, really, really important work. And then, now taking that information and then working with us and other organizations to have actions be taken or to put things into place. But just by the very nature of your research, it's teaching us so much about what's important and how we can grow this area's economy. I like your public policy forums, like the Shorecast, that we can share information and learn, and that helps us to plan what we're doing, and it helps us to know where we should focus. I think the training that you're doing, the Casino Integrated Resort Operations Certificate, that checks so many boxes because it helps the casinos to have more qualified leaders, and it also helps our area residents to grow their career opportunities. So I just think that is a fabulous program, and I would say if there's any opportunity to do more of that, it'd be wonderful. And I think too, something that I think happened before, I remember having a conversation with Senator Whalen, and he talked about how the casinos were more engaged in the neighborhoods. They would attend the neighborhood meetings, community meetings. And I think that the casinos are such an important part of our everyday life here. And there's so many residents that live in the city that work in the casinos and get their paycheck there, and they're living there. And Chelsea EDC has started to work with the casinos to help them to buy homes, for example, and take advantage of other programs we have. But continuing to build that relationship between the casinos and the community and the neighborhoods, I think is a great role for all of us to do. And light may be positioned well.
Yeah, that's a
I'm
great
thrilled.
suggestion.
Yeah,
No.
and I'm thrilled that someone that I consider myself a neighborhood person, and I'm a resident, and the fact that I was given the opportunity to be on the board is um, just made me feel great. So thank you for inviting me to be on it.
Oh,
And I
yeah, no, you've been a great person on the board. And I think our last meeting where you and the other EDCs presented was very eye-opening for the industry. So I think that was a great forum, like a public policy discussion forum. So thank you. We will continue to try to do more of that. And
Mhm.
my last question is just anything else you'd like to comment on about your vision or your background or anything to share with our listeners?
um, I would just say that I try and have a positive, outlook. I try and work really hard. I was so blessed. The work ethic was very, very strong in my family growing up, and the opportunity to go to college and all that was available. And I'm so grateful for that. And that helps me to stay positive. One of the things that happens so often, I'm going to call it, I've been calling it the trap. And the trap is that we we all want to see Atlantic City do better. And it's so easy to say, well, this person should do this or that person should do that. And we really don't have control over what other people do. So I would just say what I try and do every day. And when I start to fall in that trap, I say, well, what can I do? And what can Chelsea EDC do? And I'd rather spend my energy and time thinking about what I can do or what the organization can do to make people's lives better, because even though it's easy to complain and sometimes it feels good, it doesn't really get anything done. So that would be my final thought. And of course, everyone working together, and the CDCs have been such a bright light. The four of us worked together. We applied for a grant that we got from the EDA, $1 million grant for improvements into the neighborhood. So I just want to say also that I'm just so proud to be part of that group, and I'm excited about what we'll continue to do with the support of organizations like Light, with the Casino Association providing funding, which has been starting to happen for us, which is wonderful. And I'm really seeing more than I've ever seen in my 10 years working in Atlantic City, more collaboration and cooperation among organizations. It's just really exciting. And I, I think that's what's going to make us successful, is that working together. So I'm excited about that.
Thank you. That's a good message to end with because we can all look and reflect back on ourselves and say, what can we do better? I love it. Great advice. And thank you so much for sharing your insight and your time today. I think that this is a very valuable message for anyone who cares about Atlantic City to watch and listen to. And I'm just looking forward to working with you in the future on more projects. Thank you
Thank you
so
so much.
much.
Thanks, Jane.